Hey guys, how are you today? Quick rant before we dive into today's chaos. As some of you might have noticed, YouTube's algorithm has decided I'm not special anymore. Shocking, I know. So now if you don't like, comment, or do a little backflip in the algorithm's honor, this video might just vanish into the void, never to be seen again. Seriously though, even a hi or "this is wild" in the comments helps way more than you think. It tells YouTube, hey, people actually like this channel. Maybe don't hide it from everyone. That can really help push my videos out to a wider audience, not just to my subscribers. So if you enjoy these stories and want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. Now grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the drama. You won't want to miss this one. Hi Reddit. I, 28 female, find myself in a situation that's making me question everything I thought I knew about family, forgiveness, and self-preservation. My stepsister Emily, 30 female, who tormented me throughout our childhood and teenage years, showed up at my doorstep yesterday with all her belongings, begging me to take her in. I'm conflicted and need some outside perspective on whether I'm justified in my decision, or if I'm just being petty and unforgiving. For context, my mom passed away when I was 8. It was a devastating loss for me and my dad. Dad threw himself into work, leaving me with a rotating cast of babysitters and relatives. I'd often find him late at night, slumped over the kitchen table, an empty whiskey glass in hand. When I was 10, everything changed again. Dad announced he was remarrying Susan. My soon-to-be stepmom seemed nice enough. She had a warm smile and always brought me little gifts, books, hair clips, once even a beautiful silver locket that I treasured. But it was her daughter Emily who would come to define my adolescence in ways I never could have imagined. From the moment Emily entered our lives, it was clear she was used to being the center of attention. She was outgoing, confident, and effortlessly charming, everything I wasn't. Where I was shy and bookish, Emily was bold and social. She had a way of lighting up a room that made people gravitate towards her, including our parents. At first, I was excited about having a sister. I'd always been an only child, and the idea of having someone to share secrets with, to stay up late talking with, seemed like a dream come true. How naive I was. The first signs of trouble appeared almost immediately after they moved in. Emily claimed the bigger bedroom, citing her seniority as the older sister. When I protested to Dad, he just shrugged and said, "Can't you just let her have this one thing? It'll help her adjust." It was the first of many times he prioritized Emily's wants over my needs. As the weeks turned into months, Emily's true colors began to show. At home, she'd accidentally break my things or borrow my clothes without asking, always with a smile and a "sorry sis" that fooled our parents completely. When I tried to tell Dad or Susan, Emily would turn on the waterworks, claiming I was just jealous and trying to cause trouble in our new family. "Why can't you two just get along?" Dad would sigh, rubbing his temples. "Emily's trying so hard to be your sister. You need to meet her halfway." But it wasn't just at home. Emily's reign of terror extended to school, where her popularity gave her an insidious kind of power. She spread rumors about me, telling people I wet the bed or that I had lice. She'd invite everyone in our grade to her birthday parties, everyone except me. When I'd come home in tears, Susan would pat my head and say, "Oh, honey, I'm sure it was just an oversight. Emily would never exclude you on purpose." But she did. Constantly. And as time went on, the exclusion and bullying only got worse. When I was 13, I joined the school choir. I've always loved singing, and for a while it was my refuge. But then Emily decided she wanted to join too. Suddenly, all the solos I'd worked so hard for went to her. The choir teacher fawned over her natural talent while I was relegated to the back row. When I practiced at home, Emily would mock my voice, making exaggerated warbling sounds until I stopped out of sheer embarrassment. "Emily's just teasing," Dad would say when I complained. "That's what sisters do. You shouldn't take it so seriously." But it was serious. Every day it felt like another piece of me was being chipped away. My confidence, my sense of self-worth, my hope for the future. All of it was eroding under the constant onslaught of Emily's cruelty and our parents' willful blindness. The incident that still haunts me happened when I was 15. In a moment of weakness, desperate for some kind of connection with Emily, I confided in her about my crush on a boy at school. Steve was kind, funny, and one of the few people who actually talked to me despite Emily's influence. I thought maybe, just maybe, sharing this secret would create a bond between us. Instead, Emily used it to make the most humiliating moment of my young life. She not only told Steve, but convinced him to ask me out as a joke. I'll never forget the mix of excitement and nervousness I felt when he approached me in the crowded cafeteria. And I'll never forget how quickly those feelings turned to horror and shame when he loudly proclaimed it was all a prank by my loving sister. The laughter of our classmates still runs in my nightmares sometimes. But what hurt even more was the aftermath at home. When I tried to tell Dad and Susan what had happened, Emily beat me to the punch. Through crocodile tears, she spun a tale of how she was just trying to help me talk to my crush, how it was all a misunderstanding, and how hurt she was that I was twisting things to make her look bad. "I'm sure Emily didn't mean any harm," Susan said, rubbing Emily's back as she sniffled dramatically. "She was probably just trying to help you come out of your shell." Dad nodded in agreement. Maybe if you put yourself out there more like Emily does, these misunderstandings wouldn't happen. Their words felt like a physical blow. Not only had they failed to protect me, but they were somehow making Emily's cruelty my fault. It was a pattern that would repeat itself over and over throughout our teenage years. When Emily got her driver's license before me, despite being caught drinking at a party just months earlier, she was given free use of the family car. When I finally got my license and asked to use the car for a school project, I was told I wasn't responsible enough yet. When Emily's grade slipped, it was because she's just so busy with her extracurriculars and social life. When my grades slipped to B's due to the stress and anxiety of living with constant bullying, I was grounded for not applying myself enough. Even our achievements were treated differently. When Emily made it onto the cheerleading squad, Dad and Susan threw a huge party, inviting the whole family. When I won a statewide writing competition, it was barely acknowledged beyond a pat on the back, and "That's nice, honey." The constant favoritism took its toll. I developed severe anxiety and depression, struggling with self-esteem issues that I'm still working through in therapy to this day. There were days when I couldn't get out of bed, paralyzed by the fear of facing another day of Emily's torment and our parents' indifference. My grades suffered. I withdrew from the few friends I had managed to keep, and I started to believe that maybe I really was the problem, just like Emily always said. One particularly low night, after Emily had accidentally deleted a term paper I'd been working on for weeks, I broke down and told Dad everything. Through sobs, I poured out years of pain, detailing Emily's bullying, the social isolation, the constant feeling of being less than in my own home. For a moment, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, concern, guilt, maybe even anger. But then Emily walked in, all innocence and confusion, asking what was wrong. And just like that, the moment was gone. Dad's face softened as he looked at her, and I knew I'd lost again. "I'm sure your sister didn't mean to delete your paper," he said, his tone dismissive. "These things happen. You should have backed it up." And all this other stuff. "Well, you're both under a lot of stress with school. I'm sure if you just tried a little harder to get along." I stopped listening at that point. It was clear that no matter what Emily did, our parents would always see her as the golden child and me as the troublemaker. It was a dynamic that had been set in stone years ago, and nothing I could say or do would change it. When I turned 18, I saw college as my lifeline. I applied to schools as far away as possible, desperate for a fresh start. The day I left for college was the first time in years I felt like I could breathe freely. I promised myself I'd never let anyone have that kind of power over me again. I've spent the last decade building a life for myself away from the toxicity of my childhood home. It hasn't been easy. The scars left by years of abuse and parental favoritism don't fade overnight. I've had to work hard in therapy to rebuild my self-esteem, to learn to trust others, and to believe that I deserve happiness and peace. I've made friends who accept me for who I am, advanced in a career I love, and even started a small side business selling my artwork online. Something Emily always mocked me for, and our parents dismissed as a cute hobby. Every small success feels like a victory, a step further away from the scared, insecure girl I used to be. I've been mostly no contact with Emily since leaving for college, only seeing her at obligatory family gatherings where we maintain a cold civility. These encounters are always tense, with Emily usually making passive-aggressive comments about my appearance, my job, or my lack of a serious relationship. I've learned to let these comments roll off my back, but they still sting, reminding me of the vulnerable girl I used to be. My relationship with Dad and Susan is strained at best. We talk occasionally, but our conversations are superficial. They still don't understand why I'm so distant, and I've given up trying to explain. It's easier to keep them at arm's length than to constantly relive the pain of their betrayal over the years. I've heard through the family that Emily's life hasn't gone as smoothly as she probably expected. She's had a string of failed relationships, unable to maintain anything long-term. Her professional life has been equally bad, with her bouncing from job to job, always blaming her bosses or co-workers for her failures. Part of me can't help but see it as karma, though I try not to indulge in those thoughts too much. Another part of me wonders if Emily's struggles are partly due to the way she was raised, always being told she was perfect, never having to face consequences for her actions. In a way, our parents failed both of us, just in very different ways. Now, here's where the current situation comes in. Yesterday evening, I heard frantic knocking on my apartment door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment wondered if something was wrong. When I opened the door, I froze in shock. There stood Emily, surrounded by suitcases and boxes, looking nothing like the polished, put-together image she usually presents to the world. Her mascara was running, her clothes were rumpled, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Before I could even process what was happening, Emily launched into a tearful explanation. Apparently, she'd lost her job, something about a disagreement with her boss that she swears wasn't her fault. Her boyfriend of 6 months had kicked her out, claiming she was too high maintenance. His words, according to Emily. She said she had nowhere else to go. Our parents are traveling abroad for the next few months, celebrating their anniversary with a European tour they've been planning for years. Emily claimed I was her last hope, her voice breaking as she said those words. I stood there stunned as she begged me to let her stay, just for a few weeks until she could get back on her feet. The words tumbled out of her in a rush. How sorry she was for how she treated me when we were younger, how much she regretted her actions, how she's changed and wants a chance to make things right between us. She promised to be the sister she should have been all along, to help around the house, to do anything if I just gave her this chance. Part of me was immediately skeptical. Emily has always been manipulative, and this wouldn't be the first time she's fed me remorse to get what she wants. I remembered all the times she'd apologized to me in front of our parents only to resume her torment the moment we were alone. But another part of me felt a twinge of guilt. She looked genuinely desperate, and despite everything, she is family. The scared little girl inside me, the one who always hoped for a real sister, whispered that maybe this was that chance. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few minutes of internal struggle, I made my decision. I told Emily, as gently but firmly as I could, that I couldn't take her in. I explained that our past was too painful, and I wasn't in a position to risk my mental health or the stability I've worked so hard to achieve. I offered to help her find a shelter or temporary housing, even offering to pay for a few nights at a hotel while she figured things out. But I stood firm on not letting her into my home. The change in Emily's demeanor was instant and jarring. The tears stopped as if someone had turned off a faucet. Her face hardened into a familiar sneer, and she lashed out, calling me selfish and heartless. She accused me of holding on to childish grudges and not being able to forgive. Her words brought back a flood of memories, all the times she'd switched from sweet to vicious in the blink of an eye, leaving me confused and hurt. Before leaving, Emily threatened to tell our entire family how I'd abandoned her in her time of need. She said I'd regret this, that karma would come for me, just like it had for her. As I watched her storm off down the hallway, dragging her suitcases behind her, I felt a mix of relief and guilt wash over me. Now I'm sitting here in my quiet apartment, questioning my decision. Part of me feels justified in protecting myself and the life I've built. I think about all the progress I've made in therapy, how hard I've worked to create a peaceful, drama-free life for myself. Letting Emily in feels like it would be a betrayal of that progress, a step backward into the chaos and pain of my past. But another part of me wonders if I'm being too harsh, if I should have given her a chance to prove she's changed. I can't help but think about how desperate she looked, and I wonder if I've just condemned her to homelessness out of my own inability to forgive. My phone has been blowing up with messages from extended family members. They are berating me for turning my back on family, saying that blood is thicker than water and that I have a responsibility to help Emily in her time of need. Dad called from Europe, his voice a mix of disappointment and frustration. "I thought you two had put all this behind you," he said. "Emily's your sister. Family should always come first." His words brought back a tidal wave of memories. All the times he'd said similar things, always expecting me to be the one to compromise, to forgive, to make allowances for Emily's behavior. I tried to explain my position, to make him understand the years of pain and the progress I've made, but he cut me off. "The past is the past," he said dismissively. "You need to grow up and move on. Emily needs you now." It was like being the helpless teenager again, my feelings dismissed, my pain invalidated. I ended the call feeling drained and conflicted. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to finally make him understand what I'd been through. Another part just felt sad, realizing that even after all these years, nothing had really changed. Susan texted shortly after, her message dripping with passive-aggressive guilt. "I'm sure you have your reasons," she wrote, "but I can't help but feel we failed somewhere if this is how you treat family. Emily has always looked up to you, you know." I almost laughed out loud at that last part. Emily looking up to me. It was so far from the reality of our childhood that it felt like a cruel joke. But then again, maybe that was always part of the problem. Our parents seeing a relationship that never existed, projecting their hopes for a perfect blended family onto us without ever addressing the real issues. As I sat there staring at Susan's message, I couldn't help but reflect on all the times our parents' favoritism and willful blindness had enabled Emily's behavior. There was the time in high school when Emily borrowed my car without permission and got into a fender bender. Instead of punishing her, Dad paid for the repairs and lectured me about being more generous with my sister. Or the countless family dinners where Emily would make snide comments about my weight or my clothes only for Susan to chuckle and say, "Oh, you two and your sisterly banter." Even now, with Emily jobless and homeless, they couldn't see past their golden child image of her. It was always someone else's fault. Her boss was unfair. Her boyfriend was too demanding. I was too unforgiving. The pattern was so familiar it made my head spin. I decided to reach out to our cousin Marilyn. She'd always been kind to me, even when Emily was at her worst, and I knew she had a more balanced view of our family dynamics. When I explained the situation, Marilyn was sympathetic but firm. "You're not responsible for Emily's choices," she said. "You offered to help her find a place to stay, which is more than many would do given your history. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting yourself." Marilyn's words were reassuring, but they didn't completely quell the storm of emotions inside me. I found myself thinking back to a conversation I'd had with my therapist months ago about the concept of forgiveness. Had Emily shown real change? Her tearful apology at my door seemed sincere in the moment, but her quick switch to anger and threats when I refused her request suggested otherwise. It was the same pattern I'd seen countless times growing up. Emily being sweet and apologetic when she wanted something, then lashing out when she didn't get her way. As the day wore on, more messages poured in from family members. Aunts, uncles, cousins. Everyone seemed to have an opinion on what I should do. Some were supportive, acknowledging the difficult position I was in. Others were less understanding, accusing me of being petty and holding on to childhood grudges. One message in particular stood out. It was from my maternal grandmother, the only person who had consistently seen through Emily's act when we were growing up. "You don't owe anyone your peace," she wrote. "You've worked hard to heal. Don't let anyone guilt you into undoing that progress." Her words were like balm to my frayed nerves. For the first time since Emily showed up at my door, I felt a sense of calm certainty. I realized that while I couldn't control how others perceived my actions, I could be at peace with my decision. I decided to write an email to Dad and Susan explaining my position one last time. I poured my heart out, detailing the years of bullying, the pain of their favoritism, and the hard work I'd done to overcome the trauma of my childhood. I explained that while I didn't wish Emily ill, I wasn't in a position to be her savior. "I hope you can understand," I wrote, "that I need to prioritize my own well-being. I've offered to help Emily find temporary accommodation, and I'm willing to provide some financial assistance for a short period, but I can't let her into my home. It's not about punishment or revenge. It's about maintaining the boundaries I need to stay healthy and whole. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then turned off my phone. I knew there would likely be more arguments, more guilt trips, more accusations of being unforgiving. But for now, I needed space to process everything that had happened. As I sit here now writing this post, I still feel conflicted. So, Reddit, I turn to you for perspective. Am I the asshole for refusing to take in my stepsister despite her apparent desperation? Any insights or judgments would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for reading this far. Reddit, I really need some outside perspective on this mess. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect this post to blow up like it has. Thank you all for your thoughtful responses and support. To address a few common questions. 1. Yes, I've suggested family therapy to my parents in the past. They've always brushed it off, saying we should be able to work things out on our own like a real family. 2. Emily has never acknowledged or apologized for her behavior before this incident. Her apology at my door was the first time she's ever admitted to treating me badly. 3. For those asking about my mom, she passed away from cancer. It was sudden and aggressive, and we didn't have much time to prepare. I think that's part of why Dad was so eager to remarry and create a perfect blended family. 4. I am in contact with some of Emily's friends. From what I've heard, she's staying with one of them for now. I'm relieved she's not on the streets, but I still feel guilty. 5. To those suggesting I cut contact with my family entirely, I've considered it. It's complicated, and I'm still working through those feelings in therapy. Thank you again for all your support and advice. It means more than you know to feel heard and validated after so many years of having my feelings dismissed. I'll update if there are any significant developments. Update 1. Hey Reddit. First off, thanks so much for all the support and advice on my original post. It's been wild seeing how many people related to my story. Honestly, it's been both comforting and heartbreaking knowing others have dealt with similar family drama. So here's the deal. It's been about 2 weeks since I last posted, and things have, well, they've gotten pretty intense. I've been drowning in messages and calls from family members, running the gamut from guilt-tripping to straight-up hostility. I've been trying to stand my ground, but man, it's exhausting. I'd heard through the family that Emily was crashing with a friend. I guess I hoped she'd found another solution and would leave me alone. Spoiler alert, I was wrong. 3 days ago, I was working from home when I heard this huge commotion outside my apartment. At first, I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just noisy neighbors, but then I heard Emily's voice and my heart just sank. She was outside my door, clearly wasted, shouting my name and pounding on the door. The smell of alcohol was so strong I could smell it through the door. Emily's always been a mean drunk, takes after our dad that way. I tried to reason with her, told her to leave, and that we could talk when she was sober. Big mistake. She just got angrier, started yelling about how I was abandoning her, calling me a terrible sister. Then I heard this thud against the door, and I realized she was trying to force it open. I panicked. All I could think about was protecting myself and my home, so I called 911. I told them my estranged stepsister was trying to break in, that she was drunk and getting violent. While I was on the phone, Emily kept shouting. I heard something shatter, pretty sure it was the vase by my door. She was screaming about how selfish I was, how I owed her, typical Emily, always the victim in her own mind. The wait for the cops felt like forever. I was hiding in my bedroom, jumping at every crash from the hallway. I could hear my neighbors coming out, asking what was going on. Finally, the police showed up. There was some commotion in the hallway, and then they took Emily away. When I came out, the hallway was a mess. My welcome mat was messed up, my favorite vase was in pieces, and there were marks on my door where Emily had tried to force it open. I gave my statement to the cops, showed them the texts and voicemails I'd gotten from Emily. They were pretty understanding and said I'd done the right thing by calling them. They asked if I wanted to press charges, but I was so overwhelmed I asked for time to think about it. As soon as they left, I just collapsed on my couch. I was shaking. I didn't know whether to cry, scream, or just sleep for a week. Then I got a text from Susan, my stepmom. She was furious that I'd called the cops on Emily and said Dad, and she were disappointed in me because of course this was somehow my fault in their eyes. I turned off my phone after that, spent the rest of the day cleaning up the mess and apologizing to my neighbors. After a lot of back and forth, I decided to press charges for the property damage and attempted break-in. It wasn't easy, but I realized I needed to prioritize my safety and show Emily that this behavior wasn't okay. The fallout was intense. Dad and Susan were livid, saying I was tearing the family apart. I got bombarded with messages from other family members, some supportive, others saying I was overreacting. Emily, once she was released, went on a social media rampage, painting herself as the victim of her cruel, unforgiving sister. It's been non-stop since then. Police statements, talks with the prosecutor, fielding calls from family. I'm exhausted, emotionally drained, and questioning everything. I'm seriously considering moving, maybe to another city entirely. The idea of a fresh start somewhere far from all this family drama is looking better every day. I'm also thinking about going fully no contact with Dad and Susan. Their reaction to all this has made it clear they'll never really get it, never respect my boundaries. It hurts to admit, but maybe it's time to accept that the supportive family I've always wanted just isn't in the cards for me. As for Emily, who knows? Part of me hopes this will be her wake-up call, that she'll get help and turn her life around. But mostly I'm just relieved she's out of my life for now. I'm still processing everything, trying to figure this out, but I wanted to update you all and say thanks again for the support. Your comments on my first post gave me the strength to stand up for myself, even when it felt like my whole family was against me. If anyone's been through something similar, or has advice on dealing with legal stuff, or going no contact with family, I'm all ears. And if you've read this far, thanks. It means a lot to feel heard after years of having my feelings dismissed. Edit. Wow. The response to this update has been overwhelming. Thanks so much for all the kind words and support. To answer some common questions. 1. Yeah, I'm looking into getting a restraining order. My lawyer is helping me figure it out. 2. I've set up security cameras and changed my locks. I'm also staying with a friend for a bit until things calm down. 3. For those asking about Emily's childhood. Yeah, she had her own issues. Our parents playing favorites probably messed her up too, but that doesn't make what she's doing now okay. 4. For those worried about my job, my boss has been pretty cool about everything. Taking a few personal days to deal with all this. Thanks again for all the support and advice. It's been rough, but knowing I'm not alone in this has made a huge difference. Update 2. Hey Reddit, I'm back with another update, and I wish I had better news to share. The situation with my family has escalated beyond anything I could have imagined, and I'm still reeling from the fallout. I want to thank everyone for their support on my previous posts. Your advice and kind words have been a source of strength during this challenging time. It's been about a month since my last update. In that time, I've been trying to navigate the aftermath of Emily's attempted break-in and my decision to press charges. The constant barrage of messages and calls from family members had started to slow down, and I foolishly thought that maybe, just maybe, things were calming down. I should have known better. Remember how I mentioned that Dad and Susan were on their European anniversary trip? Well, apparently family drama trumps romantic getaways. Last week, I received a call from my cousin Marilyn warning me that Dad and Susan had cut their vacation short and were flying back home to deal with the situation. Marilyn had overheard them at a family gathering, ranting about how I was tearing the family apart and how they were going to set things right. The day after Marilyn's call, I was a nervous wreck. When the knock finally came, my heart nearly stopped. I opened the door to find Dad and Susan standing there, looking like they'd aged years in the weeks since I'd last seen them. The disappointment and anger radiating from them was palpable. Without so much as a hello, they pushed past me into my apartment. What followed was the most intense and painful conversation of my life. Dad launched into a tirade about family loyalty and responsibility. He accused me of being selfish, immature, and vindictive. Susan chimed in with her usual passive-aggressive comments, implying that my issues were clouding my judgment and that I was overreacting to normal sibling rivalry. The most shocking part, they actually suggested that I owed Emily an apology. In their twisted version of reality, My refusal to be her personal safety net was somehow more egregious than years of bullying and emotional abuse. They dismissed the recent break-in attempt as a misunderstanding and blamed me for escalating the situation by involving the police. I tried to explain my side of things. I talked about the years of therapy I've been through, the boundaries I've had to set for my own mental health. I even showed them the police report from Emily's drunken escapade. But it was like talking to a wall. They had their narrative, and nothing I said was going to change it. Then came the ultimatum. Dad told me I had a choice to make. Either I agree to let Emily move in with me and drop the charges, or I could consider myself no longer part of the family. He went through the classic "my house, my rules" line, conveniently forgetting that I haven't lived under his roof for a decade. I'd love to say I stood tall and showed them the door, but the truth is, I broke down. Years of pent-up hurt, frustration, and anger came pouring out. Through tears, I told them everything: how their favoritism had affected me, how Emily's bullying had left scars that I'm still dealing with, how their constant dismissal of my feelings had made me feel worthless. For a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something in Dad's eyes. Guilt, realization, whatever it was quickly replaced by a hardness I'd never seen before. He accused me of exaggerating, of holding on to childhood grudges. Susan jumped in, defending Emily and minimizing my experiences, suggesting that I was the one who needed to grow up and let things go. The argument escalated. Voices were raised, and words were said that can't be taken back. It ended with Dad delivering the final blow. I was officially disowned and cut out of the will. Just like that, in the span of an hour, I lost the last threads of the family I've been desperately trying to hold on to. After they left, I collapsed on my couch, sobbing uncontrollably. The finality of what had just happened hit me like a physical blow. I'd always held on to a tiny hope that someday, somehow, my dad would see the truth of the situation. That hope was now gone, shattered beyond repair. The next few days passed in a blur. I alternated between numbness and bouts of intense grief. I called out of work, unable to face the world. My phone was flooded with messages from extended family, some sympathetic, others berating me for forcing Dad to take such drastic measures. Emily predictably took to social media to gloat. She posted a long message about forgiveness and family, painting herself as the victim and me as the villain. The number of likes and supportive comments was like a knife to the heart. It was a stark reminder of how skilled she is at manipulating people's perceptions. The legal side of things is complicated. I'm working with a lawyer to understand my rights and options. While I don't expect to contest the will, honestly, I want nothing from them at this point. I want to make sure I'm protected from any potential fallout. We're also discussing the possibility of a restraining order against Emily, as her social media posts have taken a threatening turn. I'm not going to lie, Reddit. This has been the hardest few weeks of my life. There are moments when I question everything, when the guilt and self-doubt creep in. To those who've been following my story, thank you. Your support and advice have been a lifeline. To those who might be in similar situations, wondering if it's worth standing up for yourself even if it means losing family, it is. It's hard, it's painful, but you're worth it. Your mental health and well-being are worth it. I'm not sure what the future holds. The idea of starting over is both terrifying and exhilarating, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control of my own story. No more being the family scapegoat. No more sacrificing my needs for Emily's wants. I'll probably not post another update. Thank you all again for your support. It means more than you know. Edit. Wow, I'm overwhelmed by the response. Thank you all for your kind words and support. To address some common questions. 1. Yes, I'm documenting everything. My lawyer has advised me to keep records of all interactions, including social media posts. 2. For those asking about my mom's side of the family, unfortunately most of them have bought into Dad and Emily's version of events. It's been eye-opening and heartbreaking. 3. To the person who offered to adopt me, your comment made me laugh for the first time in days. Thank you for that. Thank you all again. Your support has been a bright spot in this dark time.